Hey folks, welcome to the Wednesday, June 3rd live stream of studentloanjustice.org. My name is Alan Collins. I'm founder of studentloanjustice.org. We are the oldest, largest, and really the only true citizens group actually fighting for student loan justice. We're fighting for two things. Number one, cancel all student loans. It's time. It's a failed lending system. 80% of all student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. We've gone from $100 billion in 2000 to $2 trillion today, and it is $2 trillion, believe me. We've been featured on 60 Minutes, we've been featured on the New York Times, on Fox News, and everything in between. We've written books, we've traveled the country as we are doing now. I'm sending this to you live from Wisconsin, where the Democratic National Convention will be happening here supposedly in August. We'll see what happens with that. But it's a failed lending system, as I was saying. We are fighting right now. We're calling on the president as a fiscal stimulus measure to issue an executive order canceling all federally held student loans. That's 90% of all student loans. It's time for the president to do this. It's a failed lending system. We need fiscal stimulus. He could cancel these loans by executive order without adding one penny to the national debt, as we've already added like $8 or $9 trillion in the current COVID crisis and other crises. He could also do it without needing one penny of tax appropriation from Congress. And he also wouldn't need approval from Congress. This is by far and away the cheapest, easiest, most expedient, and by far the most effective way to stimulate the economy. So we started a petition on change.org. You can see the link to it either above or off to the left. We've got 250,000 signatures now, and that is great. And I have to tell you folks, here's the update. So about a month ago, we were getting like 600 signatures a day. Well, today, we're getting around 2,000 signatures a day. So the tide is rising in our favor, I think. But now is not the time to let up and rest on our laurels. Now is the time to double and triple down. So we're asking everybody out there, if you haven't signed, obviously sign. If you have signed, make it your mission to get 10 people to sign. Seriously, 4 out of 5 of everyone you know who has student loans are freaking out about them. They are either in delinquency, default, deferment or forbearance, or they're paying and paying and paying, and their loan balance is going up. And by the way, that doesn't come from me. That comes from a conversation I had with the recently resigned Chief Operating Officer of the Federal Lending Program, Wayne Johnson. We already knew it, but now we can prove it. And if you don't believe me, you can believe Wayne. So that's the first thing we're doing, folks. Our petition is ripping. 250,000 people is not too bad. But you know, there's 43,750,000 more distressed student loan borrowers out there, and they need to know about us. If they did, they would sign. We should have a freaking army, people. Now, we can't count on the media, although we have gotten some pretty good media on this up to this point. Fox News Radio, Minnesota Progressive Radio, C-SPAN, and something called Status Coup, which I don't even know what that is. But he was a really nice guy, and other people seem to really like him. So check that out if you want to. But we can be doing interviews every single freaking day, people. If you can call a reporter or a producer, let them know what we are doing. We have, by far and away, the strongest argument for stimulating the economy in a way that does not cost the taxpayer almost anything. You know, the federal student loan program could be erased tomorrow. And stepping back 2 steps, the taxpayer has pretty much already made their initial investment back. In other words, of the $1.5 trillion outstanding in federally held student loans, my best guess, and nobody knows, including me, and if anybody did know, I would know, but I don't because nobody does. But my best guess is that 3, 4, 500 billion of that only is original principal. Now remember also the taxpayer has been making a profit of 50, 60, 70 billion dollars a year on this lending system for 10 years running. So on balance, if you want to stimulate the economy that doesn't require one additional dime of taxpayer money and doesn't add one penny to the national debt, you would take this federal lending system to the bathroom and drown it in the tub, as Grover Norquist, a famous conservative, says. So that's the first thing we're calling for, folks. The second thing is far more moderate, and this was what we've been calling for the past 15 years now, and that is only the return of the constitutional bankruptcy protections that exist for every other type of loan except student loans. You know, back in the 70s, some very greedy people in Washington, D.C. saw an opportunity. And so they seeded the media with all these stories about how college graduates were flocking from college to bankruptcy court. And lo and behold, they restricted bankruptcy protections in a very special, unique way. Well, flash forward 20 years, they were able to take bankruptcy protections away permanently. Well, here's the sad truth, folks. Back in the day when bankruptcy was the same for student loans as it is for all other loans, it turns out that far less than 1% of student loans were actually being discharged in bankruptcy. Less than 1%, like 1/3%. So that premise was complete bullshit in the first place. So this is a predatory, hyperinflationary lending system that is based upon a lie in the first place. Now, I don't know why we don't have 30 million people in our group, because I'm telling you, we should. Every other loan cancellation proposal out there is nonsense. It's bullshit. Pardon my French. Anything that requires Congress to pass, any loan cancellation program that calls for Congress to pass a tax, raise $1 or $2 trillion to pay for loan cancellation, is stupid and nonsense in the first place. The taxpayers already funded these loans. Not one additional dime is needed to cancel them. And remember also, folks, the Department of Education is the worst predatory big government monstrosity economically, domestically, that this country has ever seen. It is a national threat at this point. And the one thing we've learned, if nothing else, over the past 15 years, is that the Department of Education has no desire, no intentions of canceling any loans. Look at the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. How many people got their loans canceled the first year out of, I think, like 50,000 who thought they were getting their loans canceled? Like 225, like less than 1%. The Department of Education said, oh yeah, 99.2% of those people, they didn't dot their I's, they didn't cross their T's, they were in the wrong program, bureaucratic nonsense reason. This is how the Department of Education rolls. So, and you know, we support Elizabeth Warren, we support Bernie Sanders, we supported others with loan cancellation proposals, but I'm telling you, anything you see that requires Congress to pass it by way of loan cancellation is DOA. It is doomed to fail. It is a non-starter. So this group is truly the center of the universe as far as feasible, realistic ways to cure, to erase student loans. And it's got to happen. Because this thing could have a good ending, it could have a bad ending. The good ending is what I just said. They see this lending system and acknowledge it for the failed lending monstrosity that it is, and they cut it loose. The bad ending is that the student loan swamp has their way, and they continue to impose their ill will on this country. And in that case, we'll see tens, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of civil lawsuits filed against citizens all over the country. We'll probably see federal marshals storming the homes of student loan borrowers and taking them off to detention. Now, that sounds like the most ridiculous, radical, over-dramatic thing that anybody could say, right? Well, I urge you to Google federal marshals, defaulted student loans, Texas, I think it was 2015. A guy named Akers, I can't remember his first name, Akers, a team of federal marshals rolled up on his house unannounced, had a no-knock warrant, busted into his house, or at least tried to. It ended up being like a 2-hour standoff. It almost got violent. And they took this guy in custody. And they wouldn't let him go until he agreed to pay it was just nonsense. It was originally a $1,500 loan, and he agreed to pay like $6,500 with all the penalties and fees and federal marshal's charges and federal district court charges and whatever. But dudes, I'm telling you, we don't want that outcome. And the way that we can avoid that outcome and get the good outcome is by banding together. Now, we've been doing this for 15 years, folks. We've been featured on 60 Minutes and the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, Fox News and Al Jazeera and Vice News and Chinese Central Television and Rolling Stone and Vice News and you name it. We've been on it. But all that stuff doesn't matter because really, we need you sitting there to own this problem and help us. We've got 300,000 people in our group. We should have 30 million people in our group. And that will only happen when you tell everybody you know with student loans, and maybe even a few without student loans, that they need to get with this group, because this is the center of the student loan justice universe. I kid you not. So hey folks, I don't have any announcements. I don't have much. If you have any questions or comments as we go along, feel free to throw them out. I just want to say again that thankfully, where a month ago our petition was, hey, Mark Rudholm, long time no talk to you, buddy. A friend of mine from college, actually. Cynthia Pooler, Bill Knuckles, how are you? How's everybody doing? As of a month ago, our petition was like sort of limping along at maybe 500 or 600 signatures a day. Well, over the past 10 days, we've been averaging like 2,000 or more signatures a day. And this is really kind of what I was hoping would happen, folks. Because I have found that this whole student loan justice business, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so kind of a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm hoping that we can continue to build on this slow burn growth of our petition. I would love to gain 1 million signatures in one day. That would be fantastic. But just the steady, methodical persistence and diligence of everybody out there, that will get it done also. As I said, we've got 250,000 signatures now, but there are 44 million people of the 55 million who either have student loans or are co-signed on student loans. 44 million of them are losing sleep over these ridiculous big government hyperinflationary student loans. 44 million. You know them. We can find them. 1 in 5 of all adults has student loans, and I guess that would be like 1 in 6 of everybody is distressed on their student loans. Something like that. Anyways, so find them. Get them here. We don't need a ton of effort from everybody, although I will say in the current crises that we find ourselves in, where people have maybe a little bit of time on their hands, I would hope that a few people would make this like a mini job, like maybe a part-time job, maybe a 2-hour-a-day endeavor. You can be posting links to the petition all over Facebook. You can be sending the links to reporters, journalists, producers, all kinds of news organizations. They really should be reporting on this petition, by the way. You can be, I don't know, be creative. We all went to college. We all have to be at least slightly smarter than the average bear, right? We all have our own unique skills, talents, and abilities. I shouldn't have to tell you what to do. You should be able to figure it out on your own. But getting people to coalesce around this petition is absolutely where it starts. And by the way, you should be proud and know that you are doing your patriotic duty by helping with this. I kid you not. The student loan system is at this point a national threat. You know, John Adams said there are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword, it's true, but the other, John Adams said, is by debt. I think either John Adams or Thomas Jefferson said that central banks are more dangerous than standing armies. Or he may have just said banks, I'm not sure. You should look up that quote, though. I should have looked up that quote. But it was either Thomas Jefferson or George Washington, mark my words. I don't know to tell you, folks, but we are living that nightmare. And the Founding Fathers themselves, who were being savaged under debt to British banks and merchants, they called, and I urge you to read the Constitution, and you will confirm this for yourself, they called for bankruptcy laws in the Constitution. Not the Bill of Rights, the actual Constitution itself. And they called for this ahead of the power to declare war, ahead of the power to raise a freaking army, ahead of the power to build a navy, ahead of the power to coin currency. That is how important the Founding Fathers felt the bankruptcy rights were for the citizenry and for the liberty of this country. I am guessing that the founders are looking down and saying, how did our citizens get so weak? How could they let such a bald-faced scam be perpetrated on them by their own government? Why have they not thrown this lending system off of their backs? And that's a question that you should really be asking yourself today as we sit here at on the precipice of what's looking like a pretty prolonged financial crisis. So you can help, and we need your help, and you need our help, and we all need together. So, to quote another one of our Founding Fathers, I will finish by simply saying, let us stand together and defeat this problem together, lest we all hang separately. Bit of humor there. I hope you get it. Have a great night. Help us fight. Push this petition as if your student loans depended on it. They do. And I'll see you again on Friday. Peace.